Today I'm going to show you how to prep your bracelet loom made by Circle. We have 3 types and sizes of looms, and depending on the option that you buy, you can either get all 3 or just 1. So we have 2 larger ones and then a smaller one. And I have my threads here that I picked out. Your kit will include 3 to 5 colors and warp thread that will be able to make a few bracelets or necklaces. All right, let's begin. First step that I did is I created a knot that was large enough to be held in these notches. So I'm going to slide that in there, and now it's secure, it can't move around. And then I'm just going to begin on the teeth, wrapping on these teeth right here. And so I'm 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teeth in, so I'm just going to make sure that when I'm wrapping on this bottom, it's going to be that 5 teeth in as well. 4, 5, great. And I'm just going to wrap, continuing each time to the next tooth. This is a very simple, basic way that's nothing like warping a real loom. We are just excited to share with the community the simple pleasures and a more approachable way of weaving, an intro to weaving. So I'm just continuing, moving to the next tooth each time from bottom to top. We've got this delicious cotton thread that will stay strong while I'm weaving. So you can decide how thick or thin you want your bracelet. I could decide to stop right now. And I actually just might. I'm just gonna make sure that I have an equal amount of threads on the top as I do on the bottom. Here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Perfect. So now I'm going to cut this thread. Bring this over into the slot and tie it off. Now I'm going to insert my little helper friends. And their function is to keep these 2 layers of warp threads that we created on the front and the back. We're going to keep them separate so that I can weave with ease. So I'm inserting one on the top, getting it nice and cozied in there because it's going to be there for a while, and one on the bottom. So now they're separate, and this is raised. I've got my first piece of thread here that I already cut, and it's about an arm's length. So as a beginner, you can just get comfortable with the act of weaving in and out simply, and so it's not too long. So it's hard to work with. So right in between there, an arm's length is a good length. And I'm just gonna thread it through this needle. The eye is really large as a tapestry needle, so it's great and very nice and easy. You could even use yarn if you so desire. So that's ready to go, and I'm going to keep it unknotted. So now to the fun part. I am going to begin weaving in the middle of the warp so that the tail isn't sticking out on the edge, but in the middle so it'll tuck nicely into the whole weaving. So I'm starting, and what I'm going to be doing is very simple. I'm going under one thread, over the next, under, over. And when I get to the end, I'm going to pull the thread through, just so there's a little tail. And at the end, we're going to trim those tails. I like to keep my tails. You can also cut them as you go, but it's smart in the beginning to just keep them long. And then now that on the last thread I was going over, now I'm going to be going under, over, under, over, under, over, under, over. And you can really allow this movement to bring you into a space of really deep meditation. It's such a simple practice. So you can let the mind go and just allow your hands to do what they naturally know how to do. So again, I've come to the end, and this was on an over, so now I'm going to go under, over, under, over, under, over, under, over. And I'm continuing under and over, and when I get to the edge, I'm really going to give it some extra slack, because if I'm pulling it too hard, it's going to make the edges uneven of the weaving, and that's normal as a beginner. And as you practice more, your edges will become straighter and straighter. So yeah, really just leaving a bit of extra room for it to be. And right now, this green thread that I'm using is called the weft thread. And all woven fabrics, I'm gonna make this tail a little shorter. All woven fabrics are made with a warp and a weft. And this warp that we threaded earlier onto the loom is creating the space for this weft to go horizontally against it, in and out of it. And the more complex the weaving, if there's different colors, different textures, different patterns, it might not be just as simple as under over. But for this weaving today, we're gonna just begin with the simple act of under and over. And I like to use my needle even when I'm going through and pushing down. So that's really staying nice and neat and clean and strong. The more you push down, the stronger the weaving will be. So I'm coming to the end of my thread here. So I'm going to continue as far as I can. Under, over, under, over. And when I'm ending my thread, I'm not going to do any kind of knot. I'm just going to leave it loose. And I'm going to leave it loose in the middle of the weaving so that the edges don't have these loose strings that can easily fall out. When it's in the middle, it's being packed by the other threads, so it's supported by its friends. So I'm going to leave this thread right there, and I'm going to now thread my needle with another color for fun. So now I've got my needle thread with the next color, and I'm going to go down the exact same path that the last thread ended on. Not the opposite, but the same one, just for this one, so that we're almost merging them. So doing that, pulling it, and we're gonna leave that tail loose for now as well, and we'll clip later on. And now we're coming back. This thread was dyed by my mom and I using a very used pot of madder root dye. So that's why it's such a light peachy color, but I really enjoy it, especially with this green. It's delicious. And the act of this simple technique, really, the effects of it are profound, because it seems to me to connect me back with all of the women and men and weavers who have come before me and are weaving with me in this very moment all over the world. It's such an essential skill that we often don't think about in our society. So to restore value back to the practice and really see what goes into each piece of woven fabric that we are using or wearing is remarkable, and it really has enriched my life immensely. So I'm going to show you how to do a little triangle. If you're more comfortable just going back and forth without any type of pattern, just stripes, or even staying with one color the whole time, that is perfectly fine. But just if you wanted to add a little bit more complexity into the weaving, I can show you how. So I have these solid rows of all of the threads, and to start creating a triangle or angled line through the weaving, I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna leave out this last thread. So it seems like I'm gonna be going over it, but I'm gonna choose to not. Instead of going around the last thread here, I'm actually now going to go around this thread right here. And so that one, because it was under last, and now I'm going to go over it. And so each row, I'm just going to leave out one more, and it's going to create an angled pattern in the weave. Simple. Sometimes having these threads in the back can confuse your eyes. So we often place a piece of cardstock cut to size, just so we're looking at one layer of threads, not both. I just finished that angled line, making a bit of a triangle shape. I've got my new thread here. It's like charcoaly gray. And I just finished this angled line, and I'm going to begin filling this part in now. And there's different ways to do everything, and I'm still very much a student and just learning by doing, so I'm gonna show you my way. So I start a little bit towards the middle, just so I'm not leaving this tail on the edge, because like I said before, it can easily come out if it's on the edge, and is less likely to if it's supported by other threads around it. So I'm starting on this third thread. So I've now come to the end of weaving my bracelet. There's lots of these loose threads, which we're gonna clip off in a moment. And so once you reach this point, you're going to flip over your loom. And one thing to point out, I didn't go the whole way because I can tell that this is gonna be big enough for my wrist or my ankle. So it really depends on the size of you or person you're making it for, but yeah. So I'm flipping it over, and I'm going to just cut right down the middle of this thread. And I know it's a little scary, but you're gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay. So I'm gonna clip this. And now it off of the loom. My gosh, it's a real thing. And I can clip this knot that I had put on. And it's all off. Woohoo! We're free. And so now I've got this beautiful piece of fabric that I made myself. And so now I'm going to take these end knots and these end threads of the warp, and I'm going to take 2 of them at a time and knot them. Making sure, oops, sorry. So these warp threads, I'm going to knot them. And I'm going to make sure it's nice and tight. You can almost kind of cinch it up. It's kind of hard to see with all these crazy threads in there. You don't have to be as messy as me, but I think it's really cool part about it. So I'm just knotting twice to make sure that it's good in there. Same with these next 2. Knot. And another. Where'd you go? And now I'm going to knot the other side, the other end. I've now knotted each side of the bracelet so that it stays in place. And now I'm going to clip the ends of these threads. Starting from the bottom. So I'm just gonna clip them as close as I can to the bottom of it, pulling it up so get it a little taut. And the first time I saw this being done to the scarf that I wove in Guatemala, I was like, oh my gosh, what? You're just gonna clip it? There's no knots or anything? And yeah, just clipping it. And the weaving, each of the threads are supporting each other and keeping the whole piece together, which is a beautiful metaphor. And just like each of these threads, made from the same thing. And together we create a beautiful weaving. Look at that! Oh my gosh! Here's that weaving. Oh my goodness, how beautiful. Hello, friend. Use a little straggler. Oh, there's another one. So I just braided the end to show you what that will look like. Super simple, takes about a minute, and then you're good to go. If you want to make something that you can easily take off and on, included in the kit will be a set of these crimp ends and also a lobster claw and a little chain and 2 jump rings so that you can have something that is detachable. First I'm going to begin by trimming these threads on the end. Thank you. Thank you so much. So I have these pliers and I'm going to take this jump ring, tiny little guy, and open them up. Just by pulling them up and back. So it's like a little swirl. And now, holding it, I'm going to attach the chain. It's a little bit more detailed work, but that's fun. And I'm going to also slip on the crimp end. I'm just making sure that they're the same size. Yeah, they're good. And now I'm going to close it just by pinching them together again. And it's always great to have these little tools just for any kind of jewelry fixes. Sometimes things break, and it's nice to be able to still use them. So there you go. Now those 2 are attached. I did the same thing for these 2. And now I'm going to bring them on here around the end and use these pliers to close down on the woven bracelet. And those teeth, these teeth right here, they're going to hold really well into each of the threads. And I have this little tail, so I might clip that really quick. Tuck it in there. Thank you, Warp. And close it in. Squeeze hard. Nice and good. Yes. Yay. And this is that braided side, and I'm about to do the same thing to the other side. Here it is, all finished up. Can take it on and off. I'm very excited. Thank you all for joining me. You can check out more videos like this soon. Thanks.